And good afternoon. It is time for our regular Lunch and Learn. And today I'm really happy to bring you a report about aluminum, or aluminium as my UK friends pronounce it. So what I have found in this research, and some of these things I knew, some of these things I did not know. You may or may not know them, so I want to let you in on this. Aluminum is the most prevalent metal that we have in our atmosphere. It's in the air, it's in the ground, it's in the water. It's just everywhere. It is very, very toxic to the human system. So you may have cookware that has aluminum in it. You may use aluminum foil for your cooking and all that kind of thing. And so you might want to think a little bit differently. I know that because I know about aluminum, sometimes when I'm looking for cookware, kitchen gadgets, or that kind of thing, if they're made out of aluminum, I choose not to take them because I don't want to have aluminum in my body. So what are some of the symptoms of aluminum overload? Number one is confusion, muscle weakness, bones that hurt or change shape or break, seizures, speech problems, and slow growth in children. Okay, so this is a pretty wide, a lot of people have muscle aches, a lot of people have bone aches, a lot of people have confusion. So these are some things that are pretty prevalent in the atmosphere, in the environment. And so we want to look at possibly, do we have an aluminum issue? Without treatment, these symptoms may lead to lung problems, stomach and bowel problems, nervous system problems that cause movement problems, bone disease, brain disease and disorder, and also anemia. So a lot of people come in with anemia. A lot of people have lung issues. A lot of people have all these things. And so is there a common denominator with aluminum? And so we want to look at that. All right. For most individuals, food is the main source of aluminum exposure and may contribute to as much as 95% of the aluminum concentration in the body, according to research in an article published in the French journal. I'm going to say this in English because my French accent is not all that good. Medicine and Maladies that are infectious. All right. The EPA, is it the EPA? Okay, this is research on how much aluminum we should have in our body. We should have no more than 4 to 5 micrograms per kilometer of body weight. So a kilometer of body weight is not kilometer, I'm sorry, kilogram. Let me start over here. A kilogram of body weight is 2.2 pounds. And so you want no more than 4 to 5 micrograms per kilogram. Now, what we're finding in our fast foods, pizza, the cheese on frozen pizza has 14 milligrams on a piece, a slice, okay? The most offending food is frozen pancakes. You know, you buy them, you put them in your toaster oven and that kind of thing. They have 180 milligrams. So that's a lot of aluminum that we're getting. There's some other foods as well that we're going to get to. So a lot of your fruits and vegetables that are grown organically, because there's a lot of aluminum in the water and in the soil, you're going to have a little bit of aluminum in those foods. However, you're not going to have it at near the concentration that we're getting it in the processed food. There were some scientists at the University of Kentucky, and they tested a large range of processed food, and they found anywhere from 1 to 27,000 milligrams of aluminum per kilogram of food. So that's a lot of aluminum in the food, and this is all processed food. So this is another reason why we should not eat processed food. Hopefully you don't. I tend to stay away from processed food. I tend to be very, very conscious that we have processed food, so we don't want to have that. They have a study called The Aluminum Content of Some Foods and Food Products in the USA with Aluminum Food Additives. It was published in 2005, so it's not all that old. In the study, cheese tested from frozen pizza had as much as 14 milligrams of aluminum per serving. Okay, we just mentioned that. The aluminum came from the sodium aluminum phosphate, which is an FDA-approved food additive. The same slice of pizza that you would get from a restaurant would have less than 1 milligram of aluminum. So a lot of these products that we're getting, that we're putting in our bodies, are processed food, and aluminum is a preservative. I can see that, but we don't want that in our body, and we're going to tell you why. There's a lot of products. Aluminum is in baking powder, ready-to-eat pancakes, several pancake and waffle mixes, all right? Foods have up to 180 milligrams of aluminum per serving. Researchers note that in many other countries, aluminum intake through dietary consumption does not typically exceed 12 milligrams per day. Why is that? Because other countries are smarter than we are, and they limit the amount of aluminum that is in their processed food. It is a banned ingredient. They know it is a toxic ingredient. It is a neurotoxin. So that means that it destroys your brain cells and it interferes with your cognitive ability. I will also say that it interferes with your emotions. And a lot of people who are schizophrenic, and this is not a medical diagnosis because I'm not a medical doctor, but we've had people that come in here with personality disorder issues. It can be diagnosed as schizophrenia. It just can be diagnosed with personality disorder. But when they come in and when we test them, they have heavy metal toxicity. And when we remove that from their bodies, their brain just starts to function the way it's supposed to. So these are the kind of things that we need to watch for, especially if we have young people in our lives that we know and we love, and they start to exhibit some personality disorders. We may need to look at this. Why? Because children typically do not make good food choices. They are wherever they are. There's heat and eat. And so when you're doing the heat and eat, you've got all that process and you've got all of that aluminum in there. So we need to know that Americans, right, have the most aluminum. It is in the water. It is in the Earth's crust. So when the water comes down and it rolls off the mountains or the hills or whatever, it's going to get that aluminum in the water. My husband sent me a report yesterday that said that there is nowhere in planet Earth that you can drink rainwater because of all the toxic chemicals that are in the chemtrails and all the stuff that's in the environment. Even the rainwater now is too polluted to drink. So I know some of you do that. You catch it, you use it in your yard, you use it maybe in your, if you've got water storage containers, you live in the hill country or something like that, and you need to catch the water. And we thank God for the water. But the report said that all of the water is toxic, even in Antarctica, even in Iceland, all over the world. Okay, so we need to know that. The low molecular weight of polyaluminum species left over in the water are chemically reactive and may be more easily absorbed in the human body. Treating water with aluminum sulfate is known to treat the amount of these low molecular weight species, notes a 2019 research peer-reviewed article published in Chemosphere. Chemosphere is the magazine that comes from. It is well known that antiperspirants contain aluminum. This metal is found in cosmetic, hygiene, and hair products. Now, I love antiperspirants because when I was not educated, I didn't want to sweat because I don't like to sweat. However, I have found out that your sweat removes toxicity from the body. So now I do not wear antiperspirants. Yes, we wear deodorants, but they are all natural with no aluminum in there. Now, why? Why is this important? And this is really important for women. Just think about where you put your deodorant, in your armpit, right? For a woman, men too, but this really affects women more. The breast tissue is lymphatic tissue. You've got lymphatic nodes under your armpit. And so when you put that aluminum in there, it clogs those pores. It goes in there and it causes your lymph nodes not to be as effective as they need to. And so when you are doing that, you're not allowing your body to sweat to remove all that toxic material that you have in your body. And therefore, that's why women get breast cancer. One of the reasons they do is because the breast tissue is supposed to, or the lymphatic fluid moves through the breast into the axilla, into the lymph nodes. And when that, antiperspirant is in there, that's just not a really good means of getting it out of the body now. So we don't do that. If we're smart, we just don't do that. Another thing for the ladies, if you wear underwire bras 24/7, we don't want you to do that. Why is that? For the same reason. The underwire, the U of the underwire, cuts off the lymphatic flow. And so this is why we're seeing a lot of breast issues, is because the lymphatic fluid, which is a cleaning mechanism of the body, I call it the housekeeper of the body, it is not able to function because we are hampering that with our clothing. So we don't want to do that. Antacids, if you take antacids, antacids have aluminum in there. So we don't want to do that either. Of course, I don't think that you want to do antacids anyway. We want to find out why we have over acidity in the stomach, and then we want to deal with that naturally so that we can move forward. Okay. We don't want to have the different medications that we have in order to quell that. If you have to have it short term, that's one thing. In the package insert, it states that those type of medications should not be used longer than 30 days at a time. And I know people that are on them forever and a day, and we don't really want to do that, okay? So Maalox is one of the most high load of aluminum that is an antacid. So hopefully you don't do that, okay? It leads to increased aluminum load in the body. All right, aluminum hydroxide is also used as a dye for prescriptions. All right, it's also used in buffered aspirin. So if you are one of the older people whose doctor has told you to take a aspirin, a baby aspirin every day, then that might be something that you need to think about. We don't necessarily agree with that. I'm not medical. Listen to your medical doctor, but do your own research. There are a lot of studies that show that when you take that baby aspirin every day, it can lead to macular degeneration and it can lead to ulcers in the stomach. So make sure that you know your risk. There are other things that you can do. There are herbs that will do the same thing that aspirin will do, and yet it will not upset your stomach or hurt your eyes. You can also do other herbs that will keep your circulation doing what it needs to do, so you don't have to worry about blood clots. So there's always alternatives. You don't get to hear about those because holistic people just don't have the mega dollars that you have to do television campaigns and all that kind of thing, okay? So remember, our number is 4 to 5 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day. So take your body weight, all right? If you're here in America, take your weight and you'll have it in pounds and ounces, then divide it by, multiply it by 2.2, and that's how many kilograms you have. No, we're going to divide it. I was right the first time. We're going to divide it, and that's how many kilograms you have. So then you only want to have 4 to 5 micrograms. A microgram is much, much less than a milligram. So babies, right, when they have all of their things that they have, they are getting sometimes 250 micrograms of aluminum when you take them for their well baby checkups. So that's something that you need to know. If aluminum causes mental disorders and cognitive decline and neurological things, you might want to think twice about doing that, okay? 250 micrograms is way, way more than 4 to 5 micrograms per kilogram of body weight, all right? In addition, we're finding that when you have aluminum, it is absorbed in the gut and it is distributed to various other tissues. Some of the aluminum is excreted in the urine as long as people don't have kidney disease. Well, we see a lot of people in here with kidney disease, and so that means that their bodies are not as effective and efficient of excreting the aluminum through the kidneys because their kidneys are not functioning properly. If your kidneys are not functioning properly, then the aluminum is going to settle in your bones, your liver, your lungs, your brain. All right, so we don't want that. When you get aluminum in the bones, all right, what it does is it goes into the bones and it stops the natural healing process and repair process of a natural bone. And so that's something that you need to know. Normally, the body transports iron into the bone. With a high dose of aluminum, it transports that gets stuck in the tissue, and then we have problems with that. So we don't want to do that. We did a program a couple of weeks ago on osteoporosis. So if you missed that program, you might want to go back and look at that. And then if that's something that you're dealing with, you might want to think that maybe you have some aluminum issues. When you have aluminum in your bone, the bone binds to the I can't even speak today, binds to the mineralized collagen that you have in your body. So what does collagen do? Collagen is needed by every tissue in the body. And so if that aluminum binds to it and then your body is trying to use it, then you're getting aluminum everywhere, and we don't want to do that. Another way that aluminum toxicity affects bone health is by decreasing the activity of the vitamin D. We need vitamin D because vitamin D helps us manage our calcium uptake. So if we're not getting enough vitamin D, and most Americans do not, the people that we see here in the clinic, most do not, on your medical reference range, your vitamin D should be on your medical range, it'll be 30 to 100 nanograms per deciliter. Holistically, we want your vitamin D to be around 70 nanograms per deciliter. Almost nobody has that. And so we want to make sure that if you are not absorbing your vitamin D, it may be an aluminum issue. So we need to look at that. And also you need to know that vitamin D is absorbed into the bloodstream through the kidneys. So if your kidneys are impaired, you may not be absorbing your vitamin D. So it's really, there's a lot to it. On your brain, okay, aluminum accumulation in the bones is concerning, but what's more concerning is aluminum concentration in the brain. Post-mortem studies in the brain have found the presence of aluminum in deceased individuals. Now, this is something that they can't test, obviously, while we are alive, because you don't want people going in and doing biopsies of your brain. However, when aluminum-bound transferrin reaches the blood-brain barrier, it binds to the transferrin receptors. These aluminum transferrin receptors complexes are then brought into cells associated with the blood-brain barrier. Once in the brain, clearance is minimal without chelation therapy. And we're going to talk about chelation therapy in a moment. There is no known biological role for aluminum in the brain. It is not part of normal brain biochemistry. Instead, aluminum is highly disruptive to a large number of metabolic pathways in the brain. Decades of research reveal that aluminum is neurotoxic. What is unclear is how much aluminum is too much. For example, is the aluminum concentration in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, or on the autism spectrum higher than individuals who don't have any of these conditions? Well, I'm so glad you asked. There was a research project in Keele University in the UK, Staffordshire, I think it is, and they answered the question and they said that, and this is a quote, aluminum in the brain tissue, sorry, not a quote, it's a title, aluminum in the human brain tissue from donors without neurodegenerative disease. It was published in 2020. So that was just 2 years ago. The analysis included 191 tissue samples from 20 controlled brains. The controlled donors had no diagnosis of neurodegenerative disease. They compared the controlled data to samples of brain tissue from donors who had a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, there were 12 patients, donors who had multiple sclerosis, there were 14 patients, and then people that were on the autism spectrum, there were 5 patients with that. So notably, all 3 groups had significantly higher brain content of aluminum, and this held true for any statistical analysis that was applied. Further, all of the studied disease groups had the characteristics of significant focal deposits of aluminum throughout all main lobes in the brain associated with neuropathology and neurodegeneration. Okay? It was interesting that the increased aluminum content was not associated with increased age. And what that means is you don't have to be an old person to have so much aluminum that it causes those, affects in your brain. You could be a young person with just a lot of accumulated aluminum because of the food that you ate or the medications that you took or however it got in there. I mean, back in the day, we didn't have the EPA, we didn't have the Environmental Working Group, we didn't have all the studies that we have today. And so we had a lot of this in our paints, in our household products, in our toys, all that kind of stuff. Now, pretty much we've got a lot of that out, except in our cookware, but it's so ubiquitous in the environment, in the water, and in the earth that it's just really, really hard to avoid that. So we definitely want to avoid what we can avoid, which is the processed foods. All right. The study does not give the minimum number or amount of toxicity. It does implicate aluminum in particular to neurodegenerative diseases. And I tell you, if that's one thing that I fear, and I try not to get into fear, as I am getting older, as my parents are older, we know that older people have neurodegenerative diseases. What can we do to protect ourselves? Well, we can protect ourselves by making good decisions on what we eat and making sure that we treat our bodies and do with our bodies what we can do so that we can avoid this. So what can we do? Well, I'm so glad you asked, okay, because there are some other elements that will help chelate aluminum from the body. And so these are some trace elements that we all can have in supplementation, and we can work with that to clear out whatever we have. Now, we all have it to some degree because, as I said, it's in your fruits and your vegetables. Even if you're doing organic, it's in there. If you've ever used antiperspirants, I have. It's in there. And so you want to make sure, have I ever used aluminum cookware? I have. I didn't know it was bad. It was like the rage at the time. And so I have done that. I don't do that anymore. And I do a lot of chelation therapies. Chelation is a therapy where you are actually cutting the elements so that you are disengaging those toxic elements from your tissues. Okay, there's a lot of ways to do that. So in a study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease in 2013, in the Journal of Trace Elements in Medicine and Biology, it demonstrates the adverse neurological effects of aluminum that is in the body. However, it says that silicone forms aluminosilicate in the body. It decreases the amount of free aluminum available to damage the cells. So silicone, we're not like talking about silicone like things that we have in our technology. We're talking about the element silica, which is in a lot of foods, and it's also an herb. It's also a supplement. It's something that you can get. It is a transparent compound found in many rocks and in water. Certain water sources have higher amounts of silicon than others. For instance, the water obtained from the artesian wells in Fiji, which is bottled as Fiji water, has a significant amount of silica. You can actually buy tinctures of silica in your good herbal stores. We have it here in the clinic. It's really, really good for that. Many other kinds of bottled drinking water, such as Aquafina, are produced using reverse osmosis, which removes naturally occurring silica. Now, this is a two-edged sword. We like reverse osmosis water because that's a very, very pure water. However, if we are dealing with a high aluminum load in our body, then we need to not have that type of water because it removes all of the silica. Selenium is another trace element that helps protect against aluminum neurotoxicity, and it is a component of glutathione. Now, a lot of people are glutathione deficient, okay? And it's not just glutathione, but it's glutathione peroxidase, okay? It is one of the best antioxidants in the body. Now, why do we talk about antioxidants? We talk about antioxidants all the time because that is what the body makes out of your normal fruits and vegetables that you eat that changes that nutrition into antioxidants that go out and corral or house or bind together free radicals. Aluminum is going to be working in that particular category. So if you have selenium in your body, if you have antioxidants in your body, then you're going to be able to do a lot with the aluminum. Glutathione is biologically effective when it is in its reduced form. The enzyme glutathione reductase is essential for replenishing the reduced form of glutathione in the cells. Now, a lot of people are very glutathione diminished. That's why we have our wonderful scanner here, right? Why do we do this? Because it measures the carotenoids in your body. Carotenoids are what your body uses to manufacture antioxidants, which go against the free radicals. So you get the timeline with that, okay? In one study, rats treated with aluminum chlorhydrate showed a decrease in glutathione reductase activity and the decrease in reduced glutathione levels. Treatment with selenium markedly reversed the biochemical changes and improved their brain morphology. Now, selenium is a trace element that you need for your beautiful little thyroid to work properly. And so a lot of women have thyroid problems. I think the studies say that 80% of women have thyroid disorders. Most of them are subclinical, so they're not detectable. If you don't have enough selenium, that could be a problem. And if you don't have enough selenium, then you're going to be more prone to absorb the aluminum in your blood-brain barrier. So we don't want to do that, all right? The third trace element is zinc. Zinc binds with aluminum. In a study using rats published in Biometals in 2015, zinc supplementation was found to increase reduced glutathione levels and reverse aluminum-induced neurodegeneration. So if this is in your family, any kind of Alzheimer's, any kind of dementia, you might want to up your zinc because that will go in. Things are transmitted down through the DNA. So if your parents had a high load of aluminum, it's probably in the DNA. And so you're going to be more prone for that. And so zinc is really easy to take. It's very, very plentiful. And it also helps against viral replication. Okay. And so we all know what that means. The same researchers found that zinc has an anti-apoptosis effect in aluminum-exposed animals. In addition to these trace elements, eating a diet high in polyphenols helps to protect you against the toxic effects of aluminum. Why? Because polyphenols are antioxidants that are found in fruits and vegetables. Okay, there you go. I just rest my case there. If we are having a really, really good diet, then we're going to have what we need in order to reverse that accumulation of aluminum that is in the body. The final thing I want to talk about is zeolite and EDTA. Now, EDTA is a chemical that binds with aluminum, and also zeolite, you can find that at most of your good health food stores. It is a compound that is very, very effective at removing heavy metals, all right? It can decrease concentrations of aluminum in the blood plasma, the bones, and the liver, according to that research paper that was done in 2017. So while we cannot avoid aluminum because we live on planet Earth and it is everywhere, hopefully you will change. You're not using aluminum foil for everything, right? I'm just saying there are some things that I need to use that in my, like I tint my steak when I get finished cooking it. I don't like put it on the steak, but I tint it to keep the heat in and let the steak rest. We don't want to necessarily line the pan, which I used to line the pan. We don't necessarily want to do that. I use parchment paper now because it doesn't have that aluminum in there. So I'm trying to control the aluminum that gets in my body, because as we know more, we can do better, right? And so hopefully you've learned something here, and you can do what you need to do to maintain the health of your brain and your bones and your lungs, all the things, just all the things. So it is the weekend. Take care of yourself. Do a lot of self-care, relax, regenerate, renew, and have some good policies in place in your home so that you are not absorbing aluminum. All right? I will talk to you later. Take care.